Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Zebra Talk, the podcast where we go beyond the stripes and shine a little light onto the lives and the untold stories of the people who slide on their knees and count the threes. That's right, I'm talking about the referees. We're joined today by one of my favorite people in professional wrestling. I'm so excited to get to do this because there's so many really cool people, so many wonderful positive people that I know through professional wrestling that I really want to give this platform to introduce themselves to everybody else. And this is definitely one of them. You've seen him on MLW, you've seen him on Future of Honor. He's all over the East Coast. You know, he travels all over the place. He's, made his home now with Game Changer Wrestling. He was all over the collective this last year. Please welcome referee Adam Gault.
Thank you, Odie. Thanks for having me here on Zebra Talk. Excited to be here. Thank you for the kind words. I think as we've mentioned in conversations of the past, it's, they always say many friends in the wrestling business, but it's nice to consider you as one of my friends and, out of a lot of really great referees that are out there. So excited to be here and thanks for having me.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words. It's one thing when you're like peers or your like bosses or promoters or whatever have faith in you, but when you've earned the respect and the faith of the people who do the same job as you, that's like, a whole nother level. So it's very cool. Thank you. So let's dive right in. Before we start this off, I've already thrown myself under the bus in a couple of interviews. This is actually round two with Adam. As I've mentioned a couple of times on the podcast already, about a year or so ago, I interviewed a handful of people, and those interviews never saw the light of day. So hopefully this one's actually going to make it somewhere. We also saw you on the Q&A, which, was a very enjoyable experience. Why don't you tell us, we're just going to go right ahead from the beginning. Tell us where you're from, tell us your early days with pro wrestling and how you found your way into the job you're in now.
Sure. So I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, as I feel like most people know, because I'm kind of like Philly proud and like put it out there a lot.
But you don't really use John's a lot, which I noticed recently.
No, I will. Johns will come, out there a little bit more, but it's been a significant amount of time, and the accent isn't as bad as a lot of people that are, who really rep that accent hard. So mine's kind of in control, but it comes out at certain times. But born and raised in Philly, and I, was always a fan of wrestling in general, just like the concept. I think. I was really close with my older cousins because my godmother would watch my brother and I after school when we were young because my mom and dad both worked. So my aunt would pick us up after school and I would spend a lot of time with my two older cousins who were kind of like extra big brothers. And They loved everything that I loved, which was superheroes, the normal stuff, and pro wrestling.
Power Rangers, pro wrestling, the whole nine.
Yeah. G.I. Joe. Some of the stuff that was a little bit when I was too young, but like being a 90s kid, definitely always liked wrestling and like was aware that it was something that I thought was cool. I always talk about the 1993 Royal Rumble match because that was one they had on cassette. So we would like watch that a lot. And I just
Is this another one of those Coliseum video stories?
Yeah,
awesome.
And I just watched that recently because I'm watching all the Rumbles back, and it was just it was funny to see what I remembered, and because it'd been a while, but we watched that a lot. But so I liked it, but I was a kid. It was what it was. When the wrestling bug, as they say, bit me, and like there was no turning back. WrestleMania 15 was in Philadelphia. It was 1999. So like heart of the Attitude Era. Right in the middle, so popularity is pretty big.
Not to mention, this is the first time you get to see Rock versus Stone Cold, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure that was a huge influence on you.
Yeah, in the main event, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I actually didn't watch it. That's what's funny about it.
Okay, go ahead.
So, WrestleMania 15's in Philly, and again, I'm not really like a hardcore fan. I just like wrestling. What it is, and I'm in third grade at the time. And that Monday morning. A classmate of mine went to WrestleMania, and that's all he could talk about was the night before. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, I always liked wrestling, but I haven't watched in a while, I guess, is what third grade Adam was thinking.
Sure.
And I was like, I better watch tonight. So I watched Monday Night Raw that night, and then there was no turning back. So the night after WrestleMania 15 is when I was like, then all in. Again, it was always something I liked, and then boom. So I just became obsessed like most others. And I, as I got older, my first independent wrestling show was Ring of Honor in 2003. So I was 13. So I guess from third grade, it was like 9. I loved, mainly WWF, WCW, mainly WWF.
Sure.
And then,
We all had our side, right?
yes, yeah, in a way. And then, and being from Philly, everybody asks about ECW. And again, my cousins would watch that when I was younger, and I saw like some of it was
Well, like you're
crazy.
in third grade in '99. It's not
Yeah,
like you're
a little
sitting there
bit over
watching
the
New
head.
Jack. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
a little bit over the head.
Although
So
you and I are almost the same age, and like I was definitely trying to find ECW. I never knew when it was on TV though, but I love hearing these stories from those of you that are like from like New England and specifically the Pennsylvania area, because you guys had a really unique experience in growing up in wrestling where like you were right in the hotbed. Like you were a stone's throw away from like the absolute best wrestling still to this day that like people talk about, like almost obsessively. Please tell me about Ring of Honor.
yeah, and well, and that also still translates to today, which I think is a lot of success that I've had as a referee as well. But we'll get into that later. Yeah, so Ring of Honor, I discovered that. I started to discover the independents,
Mhm.
and I was second row at the show that I think Samoa Joe won the Ring of Honor title, and then I
Right.
quickly became immersed with the independents, and then it was just kind of loved everything about wrestling, was into everything. So I was, as most were, planning to become a wrestler. That was kind of
Sure.
my goal, but I got sidetracked a bit in high school. I did start amateur wrestling in seventh grade when I was 12, because at the time, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar were like the best. And
Yeah.
I understood the difference, but I said I should do the real thing to then parlay into the professional ranks.
Sure.
So that was kind of my goal. But then I got really
Before we
involved with that.
before we move on, we don't really hear too much about like amateur wrestling from referees. Like tell me a little bit about your experience with amateur wrestling and like how you think that transitioned into like your experience with pro wrestling. Like what
Well,
weight class were you? What were your experiences like? Things
yeah.
like that.
I'm a smaller guy, and I think that we see that with referees. Sometimes that's a good thing,
Sure.
and usually known
And
as a
with
good thing.
wrestlers as well, with collegiate
Yeah.
wrestlers, it's great to be, low center of gravity, low hips, all of that. Yeah, please.
Yep. So I hovered around 130, 135 pounds all throughout high school. I didn't cut a lot of weight in high school, but I also didn't gain a lot. I stayed at that for actually 4 years. Like I really haven't grown much in terms besides weight. I haven't grown much since like eighth or ninth grade. And so that was kind of where I hovered around. And I would suggest, I mean, I have I've actually, I'll get in a little bit to my coaching career, but one of the guys I coached, I know he's a huge wrestling fan, kind of like I was when I was
Sure.
his age. And he's probably not going to end up being the best amateur wrestler, but he doesn't quit. He's got a great attitude. He shows up every day. He works hard. And I told him, listen, if you want to be a pro wrestler, all of this is going to help in that way. And he's kind of like, was more awkward and not aware of his body. And I think that's where a lot of that helps.
Is
I
he
would go
in
to,
amateur wrestling with you now so that he can become a pro wrestler?
I think that's probably his motivation. Yeah. I think
Sure.
similar to what mine was. I did tell him not to let, his love of pro wrestling exclude into some of his goals as amateur, because I let that happen a little bit too much
Okay,
in
sure.
high school, not so much in college, but in high school. So, but to your question more straight up, like when I've done some drills at like the Worldwide Dojo, or when I've done training, people are sometimes surprised, even when we're doing the rolls and like the warm ups, and they're like, "You
You're
can do
really
like a lot of
competent.
different
You're
stuff."
athletic. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I've amateur wrestled for 12 years of almost the majority of my life. So,
You still wrestle now?
yeah. Not too much. I stopped coaching a couple of years ago, really to focus just on more of my shoe job and more of reffing, to be honest.
Sure.
So it's not too much in that, but I still, when you do it for so long, that muscle memory and that awareness, that body awareness really does
Yeah.
help. So, and I think it also helped me with reffing, because when you ref things like blood sport or like a really classic technical match, like all of the little nuances of being aware where the shoulders are, asking a guy like how he's doing, like I think a lot of that helps when you have a lot of experience with collegiate wrestling or MMA for that matter.
Not to
But
mention the
yeah,
fact that
so
like you have that level of experience to know what that intensity feels like when people aren't trying to like recreate it for an audience, when it's like two people that are
yep,
actually like throwing their bodies against each other and trying to overcome each other, which for the most part, like I found that Bloodsport, Natural Born Killers, those kind of hybrid like amateur wrestling, MMA, shoot fighting, like pro wrestling style shows, like it really does feel like they're and they're like actually competing with each other, which is, I think, what people gravitate towards so much. It's definitely what appeals to me. But please
Yeah.
go ahead.
And it's a lot of fun to ref. I will say the two blood
Yeah.
sport shows that I've done are, I mean, some of the most fun that I've had refereeing. So amateur wrestling, so again, my goal was, hey, I want to be a pro wrestler, but I got kind of sidetracked, thought to myself, hey, let me make sure I get my degree, this, that, the other thing. And I continued to wrestle in college. I wasn't very good, but I'm happy I still did it because it gave me a lot between just being on a collegiate team, friends, and it kept me in touch with the sport, which led to me coaching at my high school when I graduated from college. So I kind of made my way out of saying I was going to be a wrestler, but I still always loved wrestling. And
Yeah,
that
I
was
mean,
the
you
only
found a
thing that
way.
never changed.
You found a way, even though you didn't become a wrestler, quote unquote, to literally center your whole life around pro wrestling. Like even before
Yep.
you became a referee, you know, you went through your paces like as a amateur wrestler yourself. Now you're, you know, the coach at your former high school. Like, you know, kudos to you for like taking something that you knew, even at such a very early age, was what you were passionate about and what your dream was, and like found a way to really like apply it to your life in a practical way.
Yeah, and it really did take over most of my life. I mean, most of my life has kind of been shaped by it. So when I graduated from college, I went back, like I said, I went to the University of Scranton, which is only about 2 hours north of Philly.
Sure.
Came back home to Philly. Loved my high school. I was very rah and involved in my high school. Still work there now, and I took over the wrestling program and I coached for 7 years there.
Mhm.
Most of my 20s were pretty much dedicated to that place with my eventually when I was hired there with a full-time position and also being the coach. We rebuilt a program. We had a lot of success from when we had some really down tough years, and then sure enough ended up being a pretty
Sure.
viable program by the end of it. So a lot of things I'm really proud of, but mostly proud of the guys who actually were on the mat and the student athletes who did it. But
You know,
then I kind of,
before we move on, like, you know, you brought them up. Are there any like, you know, collegiate wrestlers that you think people should be aware of that you know?
well, I mean, I don't stay up on it as much as I used to since I'm not coaching as much anymore. But I mean, a lot of the guys that were enjoyable to watch over the past 10 years, 5 years, the Kyle Dakes, the David Taylors, the Jordan Burroughs. Jordan Burroughs is more so than he's been Olympic style and he's still at
Sure.
it. I love watching the NCAA finals every year, which is every March. So even if I'm not keeping up with the season too much, you watch the NCAAs, you watch that weekend, you're gonna catch up pretty quick, and it's a lot of good action.
You're gonna see some really amazing
So
stuff. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, so I think if anybody really was curious of doing that, just go to flowwrestling.com. It has a lot of good resources to get started in that. And then every March when the NCAAs are on ESPN, it's a lot of easy access for people. Watch it, see it. It's pretty amazing stuff. So
Sure.
that's kind of where I'm at with that. And yeah, so trying to see, yeah, so that's what I would think. There's too many to name, quite honestly, but some of those guys that made some big history, and there's at every different weight class. It also depends on what you learn you like just like pro wrestling, like the big
There's
hosses
styles.
are
Yeah.
super, the heavyweights are brooding, but they're super athletic. And then you have, the 125, 133 pounders, which is,
Right.
they scramble. They're, they're so hard to take down. It's
Yeah.
pretty incredible to watch some of the grappling and the maneuvering that they'll do in a match for a national championship, which is like, hello, I'm the absolute best at this weight class in the country. I'm the absolute best at this weight class. And like, it's going to be wild. So
Yeah.
it's enjoyable to watch. I would recommend that for most people, or just watch old ones on YouTube. There's plenty of cool stuff to watch. And for referees, see what those refs are like. Might
Yeah,
give
it's
you a
a lot
couple of
of good
different
things
things
to
too.
study. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're a little ways into your 20s. You've remade the program at your high school. You're moving on into your training as a referee. So let's
Yeah.
hear how that went.
So when I was kind of really immersed in the coaching and in my 20s and developing my professional career, again, like I said, my love of wrestling never wavered, and everything
Mhm.
else kind of, I don't want to say wavers, but in my life, whether it's, I really into the Phillies this year, or the Eagles, or or comic books, whatever. But wrestling, never, like, nope.
It's the
That
constant.
constant.
Yeah.
So, you go with what you know, and you go with what you love. So,
Sure.
my best friend actually, growing up, is Brian Johnson, who's the Mecca for Ring of Honor.
Mhm.
I don't know how much he's friendly anymore. If you watch, if you're aware of him, he's very grumpy and angry mostly all the time. But anyways, Brian.
But he's your best friend.
But yeah, he's a little more grumpy nowadays. But growing up, we were friendly. So,
Sure.
so he was training at Old Time Wrestling in Williamstown, New Jersey, and sure enough, he kind of ended up kind of being the main trainer there. And also they had shows every Saturday at 2:00, which were like perfect, student shows to get reps. And they had a nice school there, where they really, like, the production wasn't always there. The flashiness wasn't always there. The buzz wasn't always there, but the bell to bell quality in terms of,
Mhm.
like, keeping people safe, learning good fundamentals, all that was very much there. So I,
Great place to learn from.
yes, and I let
Yeah.
Brian know that I wanted to help in some way, and he's like, "You should train." I'm like, "Nope, we already made that decision. We will not be training," because I was still so much involved in everything else. I gave my hand at commentating, which was fun. I gave my hand a little bit at interviewing, and whatnot. But then, one day it was, "Hey, let's have you ref," and I started to do it. I hate to say the word hobby, but it was like when I was available, when I wasn't coaching on the weekends. So spring and summer was a lot more available, because wrestling's a winter sport,
Sure.
and they needed refs. So I would ref. And before you knew it, I started to get pretty good. And there was one point where the wrestlers at OTW were going to other outside organizations, and they're kind of like, "Adam, you need to be places."
You
They
don't suck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like, "You're a really good ref, and you need to be other places than just OTW." And then, as I started to realize that, and as I started to take it more seriously, and as I started to really think, wow, like, I could pursue my dream that I had as a kid, which was to be a pro wrestler, but it's a different avenue, but it's
Sure.
the business. I
You're
started to
still
really.
in there in the ring. Yeah.
Yes, yep. And so just to give a little bit of timeline, 2013 to 2017 is when I did OTW, when I could, per se. And
Sure.
so, but once, like,
Before you move on
27,
though, like
yeah,
you had mentioned, like not to say like, oh, I did it as a hobby or whatever, but like I've had some conversations with people and like I feel like it's almost unfortunate how much we like kind of impress upon people that like you have to give your whole life to pro wrestling.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
like, there are a lot of people out there who have done this for like many, many years that have enjoyed their time and they've found success in pro wrestling. And like, there's a difference between somebody who like does it, you know, 4 weekends out of the month, or 4 days out of the month, or like maybe once every 4 months or something like that, and somebody who's done it in like 2001 and then like 2016 or something like that. Like there's nothing wrong with like finding one promotion that you work every show for them or
yep,
something, or you work every show that you can for them or something like that. Not
yeah.
all
I
of us
think,
have to just pour our whole lives into it.
yeah,
You and I do.
yeah, and I think as long as they're, being respectful, and they understand that, and that's what they're like, well, more power to you. And I mean, who knows? I mean, I think about it often. I think we're all chasing a dream. We have goals, but you also think to yourself, if other aspects of my life start to fall together, like thinking about what I have already done or what I'm in the process of doing, like that's always going to be really cool. Like
Sure.
that's always going to be something you're really rewarded about. But at the same time, you're giving it all, because you think,
Yeah.
it's
We're
what you
chasing a
love.
contract, brother.
Yeah, like I said, you know what you love, and you know what you love, and you're just gonna keep going back to it. But yeah, so I as I started to take it more seriously, and I started to work for outside organizations, I think the foundation that I had at OTW really helped me quickly become, like, people are, I kind of got some great opportunities, I guess, kind of early on, or fast. But I
Sure.
think
Did you have a
a
ref
lot of
trainer that was there, like helping you learn how to
Well,
learn
Jim
or
Jim
anything like that?
Molyneux actually runs OTW. So Jim
Mhm.
Molyneux was an ECW ref. So yes,
Sure.
he was very helpful in that way. And so that was helpful. And then Brian and Justin Pusser, who is still involved with OTW. Justin was trained by Matt Bourne. So he was trained by a very great trainer. So even though that's not refs, they
Sure.
were very old school, and like, and OTW, old time wrestling, like the refs
Yeah,
were important. And like, I was probably almost even a little bit too forceful there, but that was how it worked. And I know
sure.
how I've learned since then, like, when
Which
you're in the
definitely
corner.
still shines through with you to this day. Like, I wouldn't
Yep.
say that you ever like are too forceful or, you're like crossing a boundary or anything like that. But like, I've definitely described you before as like authoritatively, appropriately
Yep.
aggressive.
No
Like,
guff.
yeah, definitely no Guff Gault. And I don't think it really rings true any more than when you're doing your count. I've compared you like recently to like almost like a combination of like Earl Hebner and Red Shoes, where you have like a very fast, almost intimidating count, but it's very like it's not wild and like like off the wall or anything. It's very deliberate and very like militaristic and mechanical.
Mm.
It's really interesting to watch. You're like, we see so many different referees, like it's easy for us to just like not really pay that much attention to people's particular styles. And I don't think you do it in a way to like attract attention or anything, but like from one ref to another, you're definitely somebody whose style stands out in my mind in a complimentary way. So
No,
good job.
I appreciate that greatly. And I think what I've learned from like in my OTW days being early on, I think I would have went to that style count
Mhm.
right away. Let's say the guy's locked up and they went in the corner. I'd probably go to it right away. And it's like, well, now we know it's the beginning of the match. If it's not a hot angle, if it's just a one-on-one, we're not going to go right to a fervor count in the corner right away, because we'll give them some time. But if it's, obviously a blood feud, if it's later in the match or we're building to
Sure.
something. So those are kind of the things that I've learned so much in the most recent years. But I really appreciate all of that. And it's interesting to how much we can break it all down, because people probably don't think that much about it. We know they don't, which is a
Which is
good
kind of
thing.
the point of this is
It's
like, we're
exactly,
not
which is exactly
necessarily
the
trying
point.
to like create ourselves like
No,
characters
no,
for
we're not.
ourselves or anything, but like there's a science to it and there's things that we analyze and that we think about while we're in there that we've never really had the opportunity to share with people on this kind of
Yeah.
platform before. So
Yeah.
yeah, please continue.
No, and so it's always fascinating and like fun to talk about it. And so I appreciate hearing that and kind of where that's at. So yeah, so basically that's kind of the story there in the long shot. Wanted to stay involved, got involved, found my groove as a referee. Before you know it, got fairly good on that level. And then
Moved up to the next one.
the more I did it, the more I wanted to do it more, the more I took it seriously, and the more I learned. And we're still learning, we're still striving. And I mean, the things that I have been able to do are really great. And now, I know, hey, this is my avenue to achieve, my dreams. So it's blessed. It's a blessing.
At what point, well, first, before we even get to that, do you remember your first match at all? I like to ask people about their first match.
I don't. I really wish I did.
What's
That
what's the
actually,
earliest match that you can remember?
earliest one I can remember is probably the late 2013 is when I started. I know that
Sure.
much. And man, my memory used to be so great with
For
everything, and
those of
now it's
you
like,
out there who are listening, like I didn't realize that this was something I should be doing at the beginning of my career. But if you're just starting your career or you're in the early
track your
years,
matches,
yeah, track your matches. Write down the
track your
opponents,
matches.
write down what company you were at, when it happened. My trainers actually showed me like notebooks, plural, full of every match that they've had, every company they were at, every date, the winners, and what they were paid for every single match they've ever had. It was insane, and it was all handwritten. But
Yep.
anyway, the earliest you can remember.
Yeah, so probably like November 2013. And it was actually another gentleman, Patrick Richard Ream, who came into OTW on the same day I did. He ended up making, like, he interfered in a strap match, and to debut as a manager. And
Mhm.
it was, and I had already been reffing for a little bit. So I remember that kind of as a vivid moment of like when I started out. And I mean, I was reffing a strap match. So that's kind of unique on my
Yeah,
early on
right.
part.
I've never
And
done one of those.
a lot of the OTW stuff is on YouTube. So I do want to dedicate some time and try to like backtrack and start trying to figure out, like, and look at some
Sure,
of my
yeah.
old stuff, because I'm sure some of it's probably like ooh, like we all know that, but also cool to see like what I was, what I still do the same, etc. But I started, track your matches. I did start in 2019, which is so late, but I'm so happy I did. And then I actually procrastinated with 2020 because it got so crazy, but I backtracked and was able to get everything there. So, but yes, if anyone is just starting or has started recently, so it's not like going to be super
Write them
cumbersome,
down.
write them down. You can use the notes app in your phone and back it up. You can write it in a copybook. Just document it, because I really wish I did that, but you live and you learn.
Absolutely. You kind of touched on briefly that 2020 was pretty wild for you, as it was for everybody. What's the most recent match that you've done?
So I worked Camp Leapfrog last week
Very cool.
for
Yeah.
Leapfrog
Oh
Live.
man,
Yep.
Camp Leapfrog. If people
Yes.
don't know what that is yet, like get on your phones, get on the
Yep.
Google, get on all of the socials. Like Camp Leapfrog is such a great little passion project that's going on. Please tell us about your experience.
Yes. So Sam Laterna and Chris Levin, a fellow referee who's done a ton for me. They are doing Camp Leapfrog, which is a lot of the guys, the wrestlers from Chikara that are now there, and a mix of many other people from all over local independents in our area of the tri-state area, PA, Jersey, New York, etc. And it's a very like no drama, no BS. Like, we're here to produce quality professional wrestling, entertainment, art form, and it's been a lot of fun. So we did a Leapfrog Live, which was an 80s themed show
Very
last
cool.
Sunday on IWTV's Facebook page. So I was rocking the bow tie and the blue shirt for the
Right.
first
Saw
time. I
that.
got
Look
to
great.
do that. That was cool. Yeah. And the last match I ref that time was it was Abby Jane versus Devontae, which was pretty wild. And then I was able to work on New Year's Day with Game Changer with GCW,
Mhm.
and I refed Blake Christian and Lee Moriarty, which was very good,
I'm
as you would expect
sure.
with those
Yeah.
two.
I mean,
So yeah, so
if
those are
folks listening
so
to
I've
this
been
aren't like indie people, they don't really know like what's going on with like Blake Christian and Lee Moriarty. Like 2020 and 2019 were like those guys' years. Like
yep.
Lee Moriarty is definitely, if not the breakout star of 2020, he's like one of the bigger ones. Taiga style, man. It's insane. It's wonderful. It's such a joy to watch. Did you have you did, I'm pretty sure, the Jonathan Gresham Lee Moriarty match at the
Yes,
Collective?
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I was
yep,
so jealous, brother.
yeah. It's
Oh, what a great match.
easily my favorite match I refed in 2020, but probably up there is one of my favorite matches I've ever refed.
Of
And I,
course. I mean, how could it
yeah,
not be? Like Jonathan Gresham is probably my favorite wrestler in the world. Like
yep,
he's incredible. But yeah.
yeah,
We'll get into that here in just a little bit. We're going to have like a
sure.
whole little section on Game Changer, but I want to hear when and how you decided to like really commit to this. Because obviously, you're at OTW and things are going well, and you're kind of like a little bit of a part timer, and then you transition into like working in other places. But I'm sure you hadn't really like, committed to like, I could probably do this as a career and get signed and like work somewhere on television yet. When did that kind of happen for you?
Yeah, so basically, my first outside show out of OTW was another smaller company, D2W Wrestling up in North Jersey, the
Uh,
Jersey
uh,
Devil.
I do like to have people explain out the abbreviations just in case people want to like Google what it is that
So
they're looking
I
for.
actually don't know what I know. It's just
It's all
I
right.
think it
Don't
was,
worry about
yeah, it was.
it.
But check them. They're on
D2W.
Facebook. D2W Wrestling. And they run every first Friday up in North Jersey. So when I was those are real good, like, again, like simple, old school type stuff, but great. Like, have to be authoritative as a ref, have to really help me learn a ton. And one of the workers there, Jarrett Foster, he was friends with some guys that were referees in the WWE, and they saw me work even from my first few nights in D2W, and he's
Mhm.
like, you have what it takes in terms of referee, the look.
Sure.
Just got to trim up a little bit, and you could get signed. And that was when I was kind of like, once you like hear it and someone
Yeah.
tells you that, and it's not just your friend or it's you're kind of like, oh, all right. And then so from that point on, just kind of like, from there it was like, all right, let's keep doing this as much as I can do it, to pursue the dream. And I kept having fun and keep having fun. And then slowly but surely, like, more opportunities came about. And again, a lot of it I think is, obviously, no, being talented is one thing. That's great. But opportunity, location, I mean, where I am geographically, who
And
all that kind of
necessity,
stuff.
yeah, a need,
Yes.
like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the need. Yeah. And the need. So, and I think I would argue 5 years ago, you didn't have a lot of, like, I don't say you didn't have, but maybe
No,
you didn't
I
know
totally know what you're talking about, and like it's a
about,
point that we've been making a lot on this podcast is like from like 2015, like you're saying, like 2014, 2015. I actually attribute this a lot to like the indie boom in
yeah.
like main wrestling. You know how like CM
Yep.
Punk and Daniel Bryan and AJ Lee
Yep.
and all them, they come in. They really made people a lot more aware of all of the indie places and kind of inspired a lot of us to get involved in wrestling. And to the point that you're getting at, there's a
Yep.
big generation of intentional referees who came
Yep.
into pro wrestling at that time. You're included, I'm included. Nick Bonato, is a little earlier than we are, but like Jeremy Marcus, like there's a whole crop of us that we all right around the same time came in, and we weren't those guys that like couldn't wrestle and got stuck reffing. We came in to be good refs, and I think it
Yeah.
really shows with the like level of competition and competency that there is on independent professional
Mhm.
wrestling at this point with
Yep.
reffing, because like there's always been very quality talented referees at the higher ups, right? And even at the higher tier like indie shows or whatever, but now
Yep.
there's tons of
Yep.
really, really good refs. It is not necessarily cutthroat because we're all, like very kind and gracious to each other as much as we possibly can be. But it's definitely very competitive. But yeah, go ahead. Tell me.
Yeah. And no, but that was essentially that. And then, like, I mean, you said everything really well there. And it was kind of like, and even guys who probably were before that boom were then noticed more because they were, again, just as good and like in the mix. And we all care, we
Yeah,
all care and take pride and like want to learn, want to get better, want to help each other out. And I think it's funny in my professional, I don't say my career, my shoot job, I worked in admissions and then I also worked in advancement and fundraising. Admissions, you talk to other schools that might be in your area,
mhm,
and you're not going to give all your secrets
sure,
because you're all still trying to recruit students to come to your
sure.
school.
Yeah, of course.
But when it comes to advancement and fundraising with your alumni, you'll share secrets. You'll let each other know what works, what doesn't work, because you're not competing for those donors because they already went to your school in that way. I feel like with workers and then refs, it's kind of similar. I mean, referees, we're not ever going to, theoretically, we're never going to make anybody any money. We could lose money. We could lose companies
Sure.
money.
Yeah,
You screw
absolutely.
things up. But we're there. We're a glue. We keep things together. You're not supposed to be a character. You're not supposed to be something unique. So I think that's why we're, I think, more inclined to help each other. Not that workers aren't, but at the end of the day, if I'm a worker and I help another worker to the point where he takes my spot or she takes my spot, that's going to be like, whereas refereeing, I think, yes, a referee could take another referee's spot, but there's 8 matches on the card
Yeah,
where, and hey, hey, can I get this one? You got that one? Cool. Let's, I get the main event tonight. You got the main event tomorrow. Like, I think I've noticed, at least working with most people, like, it's easy enough to do it that way. We're all helping produce great stuff, where I think sometimes it's obviously a lot more competitive, but to your point, cutthroat competitive for sure. And I think we all just care, but I think the fact that we care means that there's more good refs out there, which means there's more good wrestling. And
yeah,
hey, that's
absolutely.
a good thing.
Speaking of more good refs out there, you had mentioned that you were studying under Jim Mullenall at the beginning. In your experience since then, um, what kind of referees have you looked to as a mentor, or have you studied maybe not even one-on-one with them, but like studied them on television? Who are the referees that really have kind of helped shape you as a ref?
Yeah. So it's always hard because, you see how things changed in certain areas where I think back in the day when we were younger, like, there wasn't as much uniform to it, but a
Sure.
lot of those referees are still doing it today. Like Charles Robinson, I love, like
Yeah.
I mean, it's an easy one to pick, but he's very animated, but
Yeah.
he doesn't take away from the match. And it's very, I mean, that's a very delicate balance. Very
Right.
delicate
He
balance.
knows how to toe the line like very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's very genuine in his reactions,
Yeah.
and I think in some ways I've been able to do that, but I think sometimes we all kind of have to be aware of our overselling, or like, and
Sure.
I've my facials can be pretty expressive, which I think is a good thing, but sometimes you don't want it to take away.
I
So
have
that's
the
a nice
same issue
balance.
with my own reffing. It's
Yeah.
like I don't want to force myself not to react to things and be robotic and, be disingenuine. But at the same time, like I am a very expressive person and I'm a very excitable person and I'm very
Yep.
empathetic. So when I think somebody's hurt, it's all over my face.
Yep.
And it like you said, it's a hard line to toe, but go ahead, continue.
No, and I think a lot of that can be good things in terms of you're adding to the story, not taking away from it. But
Sure.
I mean, I hate to sound cliche, but I mean, all the guys on NXT, they do great work. You watch them closely. I think Sean Bennett's really great because he's so like militaristic and cut and dry, but so crisp. John
Yeah.
Cone is also another one
I
where,
love that
but
you
he can be very
mentioned them
emotive.
because there are some refs that like not that it's any fault of theirs or that it's a bad thing or anything, but like almost are like celebrity refs.
Mm.
And like Sean Bennett and John Cone, I don't feel like as many people would mention them, and they are absolutely fantastic.
Well, I
They
mean,
are
look where they are.
top
They're where they
tier
are for a
officials.
reason.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Like
I
John
mean,
Cone is definitely one of the more slept on referees like in the
yeah.
history of wrestling, and like he is an incredible referee. Please
And I'm
continue.
sure in 10 years they're all going to get their just due when we start looking back, because and then someone who's been very helpful for me since I did the Evolve seminar last January is DA Brewer. So because I
Yeah.
actually met him, so he's been helpful, because once you can actually meet someone and make the connection, it's always great. And I mean, Brewer, he was the guy you looked 4 years ago, how he's now become one of the main event refs for NXT while it's on national television every week.
Yeah.
So kudos to him, and great job. So, I mean, there's so many, we're really fortunate, just as much as we talked about how independent refs have really stepped their game up. That has led the ones that we see on television have stepped their game up. And we have a ton to learn from, a ton to soak and, all from. And then, it's funny you mentioned it because I've been watching some older stuff recently. Usually I spend most of my time watching current product, but watching some older stuff lately. You posted today on Facebook about some underappreciated refs, and Jack
Sure.
Doan was on there. And I was like, dude, watching some older stuff, and now being a ref and noticing more stuff, I'm like, Jack Doan was awesome. He was
Jack
so
Doan's
good.
amazing, and
Yeah,
people
he
sleep
was.
on him so hard, brother.
Yeah, he was. I was just. I've been again just watching older stuff, and I'm like,
You actually
he's.
remind me a lot of Jack Doan. I don't know if anybody's
Yeah.
ever told you that, but like, yeah,
No,
a
no,
lot.
I think it's similar with. Yeah, I mean, he's just really solid. So, I mean, you hate to be cliche and just name a bunch of people, but like, I mean, there's it's a uniform profession, so there's a lot of things you give and take, and there's a lot to learn from. But those are some of the things that have helped a lot. Bryce Remsburg is a great help whenever I would maybe need anything, especially when he was still before AEW, and on a personal level, he helped me a lot with and not so much inside the ring stuff, but outside the ring stuff, like how to
Sure.
handle social media, how to just handle life and
Locker room
reffing.
etiquette kind of stuff.
Yep. And Chris Levin, who's again, he's actually a couple years younger than me, but he's been refing since he was 17.
Yeah,
So
right.
Chris was a huge help in a lot of ways. So as a friend in that kind of way too. So we can all help each other, but that kind of answers a roundabout way of answering that question. So
Sure. You mentioned Chris. You mentioned Bryce. Before we like really dive into Game Changer Super Hard, obviously you're in this position where you've transitioned from like you're doing it for fun and you're doing it because you love it into like I want to make this my like lifelong career. Tell me about when you started getting those like big opportunities, when you started like doing the Future of Honors and how you found yourself in MLW, and we'll just go right on into GCW from there.
sure. So Chris does that. I owe Chris a lot. I think
Same.
again, he's in the general area. And MLW was in need of a referee for the October 2018 taping in New York City, and Chris, I think I had recently refed a show with him, so I was kind of fresh in his mind, and we were friendly before, but then he reached out and was I available? I sent MLW a match of mine, and
Mhm.
then I was booked. It happened very quickly. It was kind of like whoa, and then when I did that taping, it was it was a lot. It was a big learning experience.
Sure.
I remember my
Had you
first
ever
match. I
done
was
television before that?
not to that level. No, no,
Sure.
that was the first. So really, I think I worked with an earpiece before. No, no, that might have been it the first time. So it was
Sure.
quite the learning experience.
Yeah, throw you
Um,
right in.
yeah, in that match, it was there was a bloody nose. It was New York, so the state commission. I was kind of frantic. It wasn't the smoothest thing, but hey, we live, we learn, we get better. So
Absolutely.
and it, so that was a great opportunity for me just in that kind of way. And from there, it just once you kind of get some of those reps, and then more wrestlers know you too. That also
Right.
helps. I mean, I got to work with Impact last fall for a doubleheader in like Scranton area, 2 hours away from Philly, because one of the workers recommended me because he from PPW. He and Johnny Moran said, well, we need another ref. Like, oh, Adam's in Philly. He's great. So
Yeah, I mean, when one
that's
door opens, it starts opening other doors.
correct. Yeah, and then GCW Game Changer is funny because I love this story because it's a great story of always staying ready. And again, how you can just also be fortunate. And again, I've mentioned already geographically how fortunate I am. So it was in Philly. GCW is running a Thursday show, June of 2019. I'm aware of the show because I'm starting to realize, Game Changers blowing up big, and
Sure.
they run in my area. Let's see what happens. But I didn't outwardly ask yet or reach out to anybody. So I was aware the show was going on, but I had worked my shoot job that day. It wasn't in my mind. It's a Thursday. So I end up going to the gym after work, and I'm getting ready for my workout. And Chris hits me up on my phone and says, "Hey, are you around? Are you available for a show right now?" And I
Get
said,
here right now.
right. Like, and I had a little bit of time to work with. And I said, "Oh yeah, like I can like." So I actually looked up where the show was, and it was at the Voltage Lounge, and my gym was literally like 3 blocks away from the
Oh
Voltage
man,
Lounge. So now here's the kicker. Here's where if you're
you
starting
didn't
out,
have your gear, did you?
didn't have my gear on. So always have your gear on you. And I
Yeah.
actually, no BS, I usually do have it on me, but I for whatever it didn't. And fortunately, it was June, so there was not a lot of traffic. I got home in a matter of 15 minutes, plenty of time, got my stuff together, drove right back, no problem. Probably
Which
was there
again
within
is
less.
just, like it just goes right in hand with what we've been saying this whole time. Geographic location is such
Yep,
a huge part of your opportunities in professional wrestling. Like
yep,
I um I guess you'd say was lucky that I was crazy enough to take myself to LA every weekend or something. Because, like, being on the West Coast is nice, but it's still like 10 hours to LA. But, like, yeah, being in LA was like probably the most beneficial thing that happened to my career, just as far as opportunities. But you go home, you grab your bag, you head back over to the show, go right ahead.
yep. And then I refed my first GCW show in June of 2019 with Chris. Ended up doing the backyard wrestling show on 4th of July. Ended up doing the
Mhm.
Homicide tribute show, which you were there with me.
Yes,
And
sir.
then
So
when it
whoa,
was
whoa, whoa. We can't glance over that. I mean, how wild was that show? How
that show
insane was
was
that show?
that show was very insane.
That was my
Um,
first wrestling show in New York. And it was
okay,
also, I think, my second show where a state athletic commission was present at all. And for those who are unfamiliar with what we're talking about, the main event was Low Life Louie versus Nick Gage. And Nick did his pizza cutter spot that he's done a million times before. And for whatever reason, things just didn't go the way that everybody was hoping. And yeah, the state athletic commission came out and shut the show down on the spot. And that was pretty wild for me. They started
yes,
talking about like cops showing up and stuff. And I'm like,
yeah.
do I need to get out of here? Do I need to like hide my ref shirt or like put my bags in the car? Like, what's the deal here? Is this like how illegal is what we're doing?
Yeah, it was wild, but we got through it, so here we are.
Good.
What a cool venue too.
Oh my gosh, the villain's
Alongside me,
such a cool villain. Yeah.
very cool venue. And then when it was time to pick the next crop of refs, I think with Chris was with the blood sport was coming up in September. Brett basically said like, well, you and Adam to start, and then that was, and then Chris was like, consider yourself regular, and then I actually did a little post on. I'm not always the most like active. Well, I'm active on social media, but I'm not always like the most reflective on the career. But when I reffed in June of 2020 in Indianapolis, I reffed the main event. It was cool to know a year before that, almost to the day, was my first show with GCW.
Yeah.
So, and I'll be honest, I was really busy in April of that month. I remember of that year, 2019, April, super busy. May seemed kind of slow. You're kind of doubting yourself. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? Like, and then, you're in the right place, right time.
Of 2020?
2019.
Oh, I was like, brother, It was COVID. It's okay.
No,
you can be a little slow.
Yeah, no. I'm saying
no, I get what you're saying. Go ahead.
Before, back when life was a lot
normal,
different, a lot better. Let's be honest, a lot better. I was like kind of, and then that GCW opportunity came up, and then boom, and then still was able to do a lot more stuff with MLW. Like I mentioned, worked with Impact, Future of Honor, which was great. And so it's been a fun ride. And who knows what 2020 would have had in store, because it started off great with Evolve. Did the Evolve seminar.
I'm pretty certain that Becky got hired, I got hired. Like it seemed like the writing was just on the walls that you were like right behind us and that you were totally going to become full-time Evolve. Like they were definitely trying to build up like a really core roster of refs that would be there for everything. And I think if we had gone maybe another month, you probably would have been announced as the newest hire. But I mean, obviously that wasn't my decision, so I don't even know. But before we move off of Game Changer, I just want to like take a minute and like really take their praises for a second about you mentioned a year later you were given the opportunity to be in the main event, and like it's pretty wonderful to have a company, and I think it's can probably be attributed to the fact that like Brett was a referee for a very long time himself, that they are willing to take chances on new people, and they are willing to reward hard work and dedication. Like obviously they took me to Japan after I had been there for a year. It was they're an amazing company that obviously like Fight Forever is about to come any second now, like a week or so away. We had the show in Vegas where they were raising money for everybody. They took the torch during COVID in 2020, and really, like, no bones about it, they were the independent leader of how to do safe professional wrestling during the COVID era. So like kudos to them and all the hard work that they're doing.
And it's fun. It's a fun place to be. I mean, that locker room, there's as a referee, at least, no drama, no issue. I mean, everyone's there to put on and just kill it. And that
and have fun and be around their friends. And entertain the crowd.
And again, I'm not like the most socialite person when it comes to wrestling at times, or like, but it definitely, it resonates. And there's a level of comfort. There's a level of like, we're here, and like, I try to help as much as I can in other ways. It's good. It really is good. And it's like, because it's fun, even though it's hard work, it feels easy, it's not stressful. It's GCW is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And I think that's why it's successful, because we're having fun.
You've talked about a lot of goals that you've accomplished over your career so far. You've been able to climb the ladder very quickly, obviously due to hard work and dedication and talent and geographic location, as we've been harping on a lot. What kind of goals do you have left for yourself? If what's in your near sight line and what's in your far sight line?
Yeah, so I think the far sight line is getting a contract, whether it's, there's so many opportunities, so you'd be foolish to say it has to just be one. But at a time where wrestling, even despite this pandemic, which is great if you think about it, you can only imagine if this pandemic never happened. I mean, wrestling, who knows what 2020 would have been. It would have been huge. But having this be a full-time job, contracted, making a living off of being a professional wrestling referee, that's
Absolutely.
the ultimate goal. So on a short, more of a short term to ref for a Ring of Honor, because I ref for Future of Honor, but I've never actually. And the fact that I was a big Ring of Honor fan in my teens, like that would be really cool. And a lot of since our last podcast that didn't air, some of my goals have been achieved. I got to ref for Chikara, which was cool.
Very cool.
Got to again, doing Game Changer main events, doing a television main event I got to do in 2020, a world heavyweight title main event. So really with all that, just those goals have really been achieved. So I just want to, keep doing the best I can to, get towards the ultimate goal. And I think by achieving smaller goals, we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether it's cleaning up, getting in better shape, just treating myself better, trying to be a better version of myself to get to the final goal of being contracted, but also just to be like a better human and and then better health and then better mental health. And then like everything else kind of falls into place. So it's, those are really the things that, that ultimate goal is just leading up to those others. And then I think a reason why I don't have too many specific goals is because I don't want to get hung up on too much of not making sure this is still fun. Yeah. Because I think at the end of the day, when you show up to the venue and like, I think a lot of it's working with referees that I've worked with a lot of the same guys at this point. Like you look over the matches and you think, I haven't worked with that person. It'd be cool to work with them. And that's like another little goal crossed off, but I don't think too much or get hung up on about all of it too much, because let's just keep riding this out, doing it the right way, going about it the right way, keep working hard. And that will be, the steps towards the ultimate one. So yeah, I mean, that's, there definitely are some specific ones, but also if COVID wasn't happening, I'd probably be able to give you like, I want to hit this many matches or this, that, or thing.
Sure.
With the way life is right now,
you can't really predict anything right now.
No,
yeah,
you really can't. So we're just trying to do the best we can. And like I said, I'm focusing, you always do it with every start of new year, but better health, getting in better shape.
I really appreciate that you mentioned that you want to do that for like yourself, not so much just for like pro wrestling and like achieving a goal or anything like that, because like I think that's something that we really lose sight of, and something that I'm kind of on a fitness journey myself right now, and something that I'm like trying to really drill into my head, like as I'm like running or lifting or like whatever it is that I'm doing, as I'm like dieting, like this is for me. This is for me to feel good about myself and to have a longer life and a healthier life and a more comfortable life. This isn't just because I want to weigh a certain amount or have a certain amount of inches or like whatever, because that's what like a television company has decided I need to look like. It's to make us feel better about ourselves. So
cool.
And
being an amateur wrestler who was in the best shape of his life most of high school, college was pretty much in the best shape of my life, but I did cut weight in college. So then I kind of got an unhealthy relationship with eating a little bit after that, because I didn't always do it the right way, which is totally on me. And then when you work, anyone who's amateur wrestler, you work out as much as you do. Like sometimes if you get, my 20s were a lot of ups and downs in my weight. And I remember, or my fitness. And I remember right like 2017, 16, I got myself back in really good shape again. Yeah. And I remember, to your point, you're never really going to get it done unless you're doing it for yourself. Yeah. Like, we've like, and if you have other motivations, great, whatever. I mean, I'm only speaking personally, and I guess what you're just saying about yourself, because, you can have your own personal reasons, whether, a girl breaks your heart. I used to go for a run and then I'd be like, I wasn't going to work out anyways. Let me just go back home and sit on the couch. Like it's, that never worked when it was a healthy mindset, not like a vindictive or not like a rewarding. When it's all right, you got to do this for you. That is always when it worked. So I appreciate you saying that too, like harping on that, because I think doing those things to be a better version of yourself allows you to reach the goals that you want to ultimately be the best version of yourself that you can be. And no one's perfect. We never will be. And that's important to remember too. So just do your best every day and keep that positive mindset, strive for those goals that make you happy, that aren't hurting anybody else. And, that's good way to live life, I guess. I mean, I don't have it all figured out, not even close, but it sounds good like that. So
Definitely. One last question before we get into our little plugs and all that stuff.
sure.
Um, you have had a unique experience. You've, been a head trainer at your high school. You've put together a program yourself. You've gone through the experience of being a teacher and a coach and all of these things. You ever thought about training referees?
I have. I never thought about it outward. I think it's the first time I've actually put it into the universe with my words is
Sure.
you asked me that question. But I think up here, I've definitely thought about it. I've helped guys before. It's so extremely humbling when anybody asks for my advice.
Sure.
Refereeing it's still extremely, but I've even had younger workers, because like when you actually stop and realize like, I'm going to be 31 in March, and you're like, oh, I'm kind of like, and I think some guys that are like in their
We're
younger
kind of
20s,
older brothers to the guys that are,
yeah,
just
and
getting into
that
it.
are workers, and they kind of see like, oh, this guy kind of has his stuff together, so like
Yeah.
even if he can't necessarily break down ring psychology for me, he may be able to tell me like what's a good idea, bad idea.
You
And
got one of your
whenever
good
I,
brothers sending you a promo or something like that, or like, how do I
yeah,
get
yeah,
involved with
yep.
this, or how does this promo shot look, or whatever. Yeah, yeah, I get it.
Or when you're done reffing a match and when they genuinely ask like, do you
Please
have any
give me feedback.
feedback or
Yeah,
notes, and
yeah,
it's like, it's so humbling, because like, what do I know, like and I'm not just saying that, like sometimes it is, I feel I do have something to offer, but sometimes I'm like, oh, I mean, but that's always been very humbling. But I think if I were to, I think I would need to reach maybe a few more of those ultimate goals, maybe get more reps as on television,
sure.
whatever TV it might be. I'm not saying it would have to be like the top, but if I think I had consistent reps with that, then I could say I could train. But I definitely could help lay a base and help somebody. But I think in terms of like revenue or anything like that, I think I would have to get a little bit more up there just to rightfully do that. But I would love
Of
help.
course.
I love helping, love coaching. Like it's something that doesn't really leave you. So and it's
Kind
a
of
good
like
question.
wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. So
All right. Well, we're winding down. We're running out of time here. And before we get going, I would like to give you the opportunity that I like to give all of my guests to take a few minutes, make sure you let everybody know where they can find you on social media. And then if there are any shows, companies, wrestlers that, whatever, that you think maybe the fans or whoever out there haven't really had a chance to see, or maybe they've kind of overlooked, that you would really like them to like take a second look at, please take the time. It's yours.
sure. So for me personally on social media, I do have a Facebook, but it's kind of like mixed with my personal life. So if you friend request me, I don't know, maybe message me first, whatever it may be. Twitter, all about it. So follow me on Twitter at Ref Adam Gault. Um, Instagram, I am private, but again, cooler about that, and that's at No Guff Gault. So follow me, that'd be great.
Do you
Um,
mind spelling your last name for folks real quick?
Sure. It's Gault.
Oh,
So
perfect.
Adam Gault. Yep. Fault, but with a G. And then in terms of other things, promotions, well, obviously, most people know Game Changer, kind of like pretty much my home base now. You mentioned Fight Forever next weekend, all that good stuff. But GCW, they're well known.
Sure.
I did mention Brian Johnson. He is Ring of Honor contract with Ring of Honor. So if you watch Ring of Honor, if you haven't in a while, check out Brian Johnson, watch his matches. You'll see he's very talented. If you tell him that, he'll probably insult you, call you a bozo, and tell you to get bent. Kind of what he does.
Sure.
But he is talented, and checking him out would be worthwhile. Then Old Time Wrestling, which where I started, the school no longer exists. It's now actually in the location of H2O, where Matt Tremont's doing great work. But Old Time Wrestling still exists. They're on YouTube. They have tons of old matches, and they're currently having shows called The Canvas. So check that out on YouTube. Justin Pusser was really a great help for me in developing me as a referee. Adam Chandler, another wrestler, they're my buddies. They're good people. Patrick Richard Ream, all of them are just good guys that I think they're kind of they're enjoying what they have right now with wrestling, and I think people would enjoy watching that. So those are my main things.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm so excited that I got to have you on here. It's always a joy to get a chance to talk to you and just, chop shop and all that stuff. And yeah, compare notes and hear a little bit more about your life. So thank you very much for being here. For those of you who want to support the Zebra Talk Fund, please head on over to prowrestlingtees.com/Zebra Talk. We've got t-shirts, we've got sweaters, we've got hats, we've got COVID masks, pins, we've got tracksuits that are going to be coming in any day now. If you would like to be featured on the show and you're a referee yourself, please send an email over to zebratalk123@gmail.com. That's also where you apply to the Zebra Talk Fund, which, for those of you who are unfamiliar, is a nonprofit charity that I've organized where once a month we help pay for someone to go to a new territory that they haven't really been able to afford to get to on their own. If you would like to find Zebra Talk on social media, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at ZebraTalk123. If you're not part of Zebra Talk on Facebook and you're a professional wrestling referee, why are you not there yet? Please find me on Facebook at Robert Odie Brown, and you can also find me on Instagram and Twitter at Odie1Canody. And thank you again for being here, man. I really appreciated your time today. It was great getting to hear from you.
Thank you, Odie. My pleasure. Appreciate it.
All right. We'll talk to you again soon. See you, buddy.